Hi, hello neighbor. This is Haiti Panamino, your host for Social Practices in the House of Wisdom. Today we are going to be talking with our special guest, Skyler Raniseth, who is going to be sharing with us some views about growing up as a Gen Z young person. So Skyler, welcome to the show. I'm grateful that you can be here today. I just wanted to say I'm so excited to talk to you because this is something that a lot of people have been asking me about. It's like, what about the young people? Like, how do they get involved? Our podcast here is for the purpose of sharing ideas, resources on how to create sustainable practices in our community. And we would like to know more about how young people view these types of endeavors for themselves, in the future and things like that. So one of the things that I wanted to start this conversation with was, what are the differences between an online world, growing up in that, versus a more physical one?
Yeah, so I don't know. In an online world, it feels more like you can escape from your problems. You feel a lot more like you can be yourself and be the person. Like, you're not just trapped to one person like you are in the real world. For me, growing up in an online world has been the biggest part of my childhood. I found that it allowed me to be somebody different than who I was in the real world. Growing up, obviously, you get judged a lot when you're younger. Young kids aren't nice to other young kids. It's just how it is. And sometimes even parents don't accept you for who you are. When you put yourself into an online world, you can be whoever you want to be. You're not just trapped to one persona. I can go to Instagram, let's say, and I can be an artist. I can go to, my gaming world where I am, and I can be whatever I want to be, whether I'm living in a medieval fantasy or some kind of spacey theme. I can go around and do what I want to do, and I'm not really confined and trapped like I feel in the real world. In the real world, everything feels very controlling, and you feel like you have a set path and you have certain expectations that are put onto you. And when these are all put onto you, especially if it's not who you want to be, it can become very stressful and very straining, and you don't really want to be part of this. Like, you want to escape somehow. So I guess in an online world, it's a huge escapism thing. But yeah. In an online world as well, you also tend to endure a lot more as well, because people aren't scared to say anything. Like, you can hear some of the nastiest things you've ever heard in your life. You can hear some of the sweetest things you've ever heard in your life. More often than not, it's nasty things, and people take their anger out on you. So as you begin in the online world, you don't start with thick skin. You start off, taking everything kind of personally and struggling through it. But as you kind of endure it more, you realize that the other person sitting behind the screen has no fear to say these things. They know that there's no repercussions. And so, you can take that multiple different ways. You can choose to fight back. That's why they invented a block and a mute button, so you can kind of get rid of these things and not have to endure them as much. And you can continue being yourself.
Right. So when you're talking about thick skin, how does that affect you when you're in the really real world and someone comes up to you and is like all negative and stuff?
I feel like the two are very different. You can learn to take insults and stuff a little bit from online, but when somebody's face to face with you and they begin to insult you, it becomes a difficult thing to deal with still, because you kind of sit there and you're like, well, what do? I'm faced with the confrontation where, somebody's directly across from me. So I feel like you still need that confrontation in real life. You can't learn all the skills you need online, especially because you can just say block somebody or remove them and get rid of them, and that removes that learning of how to have thick skin, right? And so I feel like, yeah, in the real world, you have to have those experiences still. You have to endure the bullying in school, go through the hardships in life with your parents, and even like, coworkers and employers and stuff, just putting up with what they have to give to you and learning how to have thick skin face to face as well.
Right. Now, with parents, there's quite the generational gap, right? So looking for myself, I came from a generation where there wasn't internet, and you actually had to dial your phone or find a payphone and call your friends or call whoever, to now a place where it's just so convenient that I almost forget that I came from a place where that wasn't readily available. Now, for you, for example, let's say with your parents, right? Like you're probably dealing with people that are like my age, right? So how does that tension work? And how do you feel the parental roles are different for a child who has grown up in a virtual world and with parents who are still transitioning into it?
For me, at least, I mean, for a lot of my friends, I guess, and us as well, it's very unforgiving. Parents tend to not agree with the things that their kids are doing, and this can put like a huge strain on relationships between kids and parents. I find for me, it definitely did. It started a lot of arguments between, my mom and me a lot of the time, because she'd always tell me to go outside. She'd tell me to go do things, and that was the last thing I wanted to do. Like that wasn't what I wanted at all, right? And so when I was given that world to be the person I wanted to be, and my parents didn't want to accept that, they began to intervene, try and pull me out of it. And don't get me wrong, I do feel like it's still important to get out and go do things, but it also put a damper on things because I didn't want to give up being the person I enjoyed being to go be out in the real world where I didn't want to be.
Mm-hmm. And a person that was expected of you, a different person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can imagine that it's hard to relate as well to people who are not living that reality, because they're judgmental. Like I look at magazines that come out and say, millennials, it's all your fault, and Gen Z, oh, there's no hope. And, how does that affect a whole entire generation?
Yeah. I don't know. From looking at media and things like that, like magazines, media, everything else, I feel like, especially for like my parents' age, they read these headlines and they blow everything out of proportion, right? The headline is all that really gets to them. They don't actually dig deeper into things.
Tell me more about how, your, like, let's say your parents' education versus our education, right? Like, or your education, you're able to learn so much faster and so much more. So let's go back to the question of, what type of stresses do your parents put on you that you feel, are maybe not justified or maybe understood properly because of the generational gap and the technology gap?
Yeah, so stresses. I feel like they expect things to take longer than they actually do. Like in school and things like that, I'd be going through school, and don't get me wrong, I was not a wonderful student by no means, but I could finish 3 weeks of homework in a week easily. It was no problem for me. But my parents didn't see that should have been something that was possible. And so, I might sit down and study for an hour, whereas they would look at me and they'd be like, you can't learn something that fast. And then they would begin to tell me that I had to sit there for longer or whatever. And so I feel like the learning gaps between our generations, because of the internet, is very different. Like I can just go on the internet and find something, whereas my parents aren't internet savvy, fluent. And so when they go to find something on the internet, they can never find good information, or they pull from a bad source or whatever else, and then they believe that the internet isn't reliable and there isn't good things on the internet, and that you can't just go on there and learn something. Like So they've been getting a lot better, but when I was younger, it definitely was a huge struggle for me because I would just go and learn something. I remember when I was really young and I really wanted to learn how to set up a Minecraft server to play with my friends. I learned all of it in one night, and nobody even batted an eye because nobody cared, and they didn't believe that I could learn something that quickly. And so that was definitely a struggle for me, where I feel like as I accomplish things faster and faster and faster, at times I'd get called a smart child, but at times it'd be like, oh, you haven't learned enough yet. You haven't learned enough, and there's still more to learn. And it's just like, well, praise me a little for the things that I have learned. Understand that I have come a long way or a far way really fast, and yeah.
Right. So you're only 21 years old, right?
22.
22, and you're on your own, living by yourself. You've got your independence, and you've got a full-time job, and you're also a student. What are you studying?
Accounting.
Right. So now there's another thing. How do you find the education system when it comes to being physically there?
I feel like teachers have definitely taken the crutch a lot more of being able to just drop videos on you and expect you to learn from them. Don't get me wrong, I think the internet is a great place to learn things from, but I feel like depending on your learning style and who you are, sometimes you need more of that physical environment. You need that teacher there, and a lot of teachers, not all of them, but a lot, have learned to they can just drop these videos on you. They can just drop this information in a Dropbox for you and say, here, go read it all and learn it, and then expect you to come back knowing it. And for some of us, that doesn't work for us. We actually want to be in school learning from a teacher. And as much as I love my online world and I am super big into the tech, I don't learn well from just going and reading words on a computer screen or going and watching a YouTube video. I need somebody who I can ask questions to and get answers back. I can't do that with a YouTube video or things like that. With the invention of ChatGPT, it's definitely helped me a lot. I can ask a question and I can get the response right away, and it is similar to having a conversation with a teacher, but sometimes it's still just not enough for me to absorb the information that I need.
Because you're still talking to a computer.
Yeah.
Right. So when you're talking about connection, which is what this podcast wants to focus on, is creating healthy connections between people and between our community. Do you still feel that that is a valuable thing that maybe is being kind of not practiced enough when it's an online world with our youth?
Yeah, I do think that proper connection can definitely be a struggle in the online world. Because like I say, when people are sitting behind a computer screen, the person that they're portraying is not always who they actually are. And so you don't get an actual fully developed connection with somebody. I have many friends from down in the South and places like that where I know them well. We've been friends for years and years and years, and I've even went to go and meet some of them. Wonderful people, but you don't always get that. You encounter more people than not that they're not nice, or they pretend to be somebody, and then they turn around one day and all of a sudden, they just snap on you. And I mean, I guess it can happen in the real world as well, but you definitely see it more when they're behind a screen because they're not scared.
So as you're talking about that, they're not scared. So, they're not scared to say whatever they want to say. How do you handle cyberbullying? And what was your first experience of that like?
Well, my first experience of cyberbullying was back in Call of Duty 4, the first Modern Warfare. And I heard some slurs, I heard some pretty bad things, and I came out of it not understanding some of it and understanding other parts of it, and I definitely was not very happy with it. I had no way to really talk back. I didn't have a microphone at the time, and so I just had to sit there and take it. There was nothing else to it. And for years, that's all it was, because my parents refused to buy me a microphone. They told me that I wasn't allowed when I'd talk too much. I'd annoy people. And so I just sat there and just listened to people talk down on me. And it got to me at times. Sometimes I would just straight up leave the game because I figured, you know what, if I'm that bad, then I don't need to be here, so I'd just leave. But as time went on and I got a microphone and stuff, I learned that, you know, there's two ways to go about it. And I resort more often to just muting people than anything else. But there are times where if I need some anger out, I open up my mic and I let them have a little bit.
So now you're really good with people, as I can see. You know, you actually are one of those people who are very social and just like you love connection with people. And I'd like to know a little bit more about how you connect using Babster. And tell me who Babster is.
So Babster is it's a figure that I created for myself. It was a name that I created when I was very young. I made my first ever Minecraft account, and I didn't know what to name myself. Still to this day have an issue with naming myself, so I just slapped my fingers on the keyboard and boom, it was kind of there already. And I was like, perfect. So that was the name I chose, and I hopped into my online world, and I just started to develop this person in the online world that I seen as myself and who I wanted to be. I would, you know, dig deeper into other people's lives, and I would make sure that, you know, I tried to keep the connections with other people as if Babster was my name. I knew that growing up, that was the name that I wanted to kind of move the rest of my life with. And like any other name, if you create a bad reputation for it, you don't want that name anymore. You don't want that to be part of you. But in the online world, you can't really get rid of that kind of stuff. That's whatever you put out there is out there for good, right? And so Babster has just kind of been this, you know, person who I've developed to be just like me. Even if I'm playing a single player game like Skyrim or other things, I make this good character that generally doesn't have any bad intentions, generally, and I go through and I role play as if I am this person because I just feel like it's me. Like, I feel like when I'm in front of a screen, there's horse dividers on my eyes, and I live there. I'm there. I've escaped everything else.
Right. Now this is something that I know of you personally, which also leads into the escape world. And I know that it's something that you do physically with a group of people, and that is...
D&D.
D&D. D&D. It's coming back, people. Everybody go and get yourself a set of dice. But tell me more about that experience.
So I started playing D&D with my aunt and uncle, what would that be now? 3 years ago, and I saw this as a wonderful opportunity. Growing up, I already knew how to put myself into a game, into a world, and hide away from everything, and so I thought, what better way to do it than with some friends? Everybody else feels the same way, wants to be like, you know, in their own shoes, and so I developed my first ever character, Babster Keep, and and I hopped right in, and I was playing a stealthy little rogue, and I just started being this character. So in D&D, if you don't know what it is, you generally, you can play it online, but it's more fun in person. You go and you sit down with friends. Generally, you have one person who tells the story, and you have 4 or 5 other players. You can play with less, but it's harder. And as you begin to play this game, you all make characters, and you be this character. Everybody at the table puts themselves as this character, and you try your best not to step out of your shoes. Obviously, everybody laughs and everything else, but you try your best to play this character and be this character, and if you start to stray too far, the person who tells the story can alter your character in different ways or pose them with different situations that change who your character actually is as a person. For me, I've played, 5 different campaigns now. They can last years and years and years. Generally, we get together once a week to play. All it is, you build your stat sheet, you get together, you roll your dice, and, do your little fun interactions, and then everybody depending on who you're playing with. Some people like to sit around, smoke weed, get drunk, etc. Other people just like to sit down and take the game really seriously, and they don't even step back into who they are. Like, I've watched my uncle completely transform himself into a different character with a different voice and a different attitude, and for a full 4 hours straight was that person. Did not step out of his shoes once. And to see that is phenomenal. It's crazy.
That's very exciting. Now, for any of you who don't know what D&D is, it's old school Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, good stuff. Wow, Skyler, that was very eye-opening for me, and I'm just learning more about you. I think that a question that I had from someone earlier on today was, I told them I was going to be interviewing you and the concept of our talk, and they wanted to know, how can a person in this type of society, let's say your age or younger, who is predominantly living online, how can they take care of their mental health? Like, what do you do to take care of your mental health?
Well, rule number one is always acknowledge that your mental health is in the ground if it is. A lot of people don't even like to acknowledge that, and they'll hide from it, especially males. And so step one is to acknowledge it, and step two is to understand when your mental health begins to take over these other things as ways to cope. So, like, when I go home every day, instead of, doing any chores or, cleaning up or taking care of myself, eating food, whatever it is, I just go right to playing video games. You have to begin to acknowledge when you're doing that so that you can take a step back and still take care of yourself. You kind of fall into a mental health pit trap. Instagram was really bad for me. I actually removed it from my phone because when my mental health would get bad, I'd sit there and I'd scroll, and then next thing you know, 4 or 5 hours had gone by and I'd done nothing but scroll and cry and smile and laugh and then be angry and then cry some more. And it was just, the online world can really eat away at it, but it can also be a really good thing too. If you need an escape from reality, you need a way out, and turning to drugs and alcohol is definitely not the right way of going about it. Sometimes your way out is to jump into the online world, go be somebody else so that you don't have to think about anything here. And so for a couple hours every night, I always hop on my games and I go and I be somebody else so that everything that exists in the real world doesn't have to exist anymore. Not in my head, nowhere else. And every night you sometimes just need a way to get away, or else it just eats at you. And when it doesn't stop eating at you and you don't stop thinking, it begins to hurt really bad.
Yeah, so just being aware and just acknowledging it and giving yourself that space that you need to get back. So tell me what it was like for you graduating in 2020.
Yes, so graduating in 2020 was honestly probably one of the worst experiences ever. I came from a small town that was not prepared for everything that happened. We had no resources for it. It started off where we all kind of, sat away from each other in school, and then after a couple of weeks, I want to say it was, maybe a couple of months, we were kind of pushed back to our homes to get out of everything. And when we got pushed back to our homes, at the time I did have a job. I quit my job and I began to slack off in school. I played a lot of video games, and when I was going to these online classes, teachers did not have the proper ways of teaching. Like, some were more set up than others. They understood the technology. Others did not understand technology, and it would just be hours of trying to talk teachers through how to get their tech working. And I dropped my biology class because she refused to put anything online, and she would only put it on the whiteboard. And with how bad the internet was, you couldn't actually see what was on the whiteboard. And I got so fed up that I started dropping classes, and I just passed with the bare minimum classes I needed. There was, at one point, I stopped doing schooling for 3 months entirely, and then I came back to it. It was my math class, and in 2 weeks I did 3 months of schooling. It was rough. I made it through still, but it was not a fun year to succeed in, that's for sure. I wouldn't even call it success. I would just say that it was just survival of the fittest. It was, they just proved that even with the way technology was progressing, that our systems were not ready for that type of crash in the industry.
Very interesting. So do you think that we're more prepared now?
I would definitely say yes. There has been a lot of changes in the government. They've began to run like high-speed internet out to all like the more rural towns. Even in urban towns, we're getting better internet. I feel like a fair few of the teachers understand online a lot better, at least from my college experiences. From K to 12 experience, I don't know for sure. I feel like for kindergartners or younger kids like that, an online experience just will never be enough. I feel like humans kind of need interaction from an early on point in life, and then as they go further through life and they learn a bit more, then they can, stray away from it a bit more and learn from the online experience. But I don't think that, I think if we had another crash the way we did, that it would definitely still detriment a fair few lives. It wouldn't be as bad, but it would be still hard on the system.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you very much once again. I do have a little comment from a friend of mine, Jody Wyanko, who wanted to talk more about where you can get help if anybody is feeling like, you know what, I'd like to reach out more, or I'd like to have a conversation about how I'm feeling. So so I want to thank Jody for coming on and talking about that in a few moments. But once again, Skyler, it was great talking to you. I really enjoyed it, and I just wish you well in your studies. I wish you well in everything you do, and I personally, I have a great belief in your generation because you guys learn faster. You guys learn more. You have that thick skin, that a lot of us, it takes years and years and years to develop. You guys are like, we're there. We learned it on tour duty or whatever it's called. You know what I mean? But yeah. So thank you very much once again, and best of luck with everything.
Well, thank you for having me. I enjoyed this.
Hi, my name's Jody. I've worked with the nonprofit field in Red Deer for probably about 20 years. I've devoted my life to helping people find their hope and purpose after they've fallen, essentially. I want to thank Skyler for telling us his story. It's not an easy story to tell, but it gives a really good snapshot of what people have been going through the last couple of years, or what it's like to start out as a young adult here in the times after COVID. Especially, it's been a struggle for a lot of those younger adults transitioning into that adulthood stage. The one thing that I'd like to highlight on is the resources we do have in Red Deer to stop people from experiencing crisis. So we have a lot of supports in education. We have a ton of classes and courses that are out there that are available online. In person, if some people need in person. Over the phone, we have crisis counselors that you can access over the phone for free. If you're looking to connect with people, we have great facilities here in Red Deer, the Recreation Center, the DAW Center, the Colicut Center. If you're low income, if you're under the threshold for low income, you can get a free membership to access those centers as well. And they have groups and classes and lots of them. There's also the food bank if you're looking for food. We're able to get you food free of charge, obviously, to get you through that kind of stuff. And they can also, when you go down there, before you pick up your food, they will have a person there during intake to walk you through all of the systems that might help you from falling back into crisis or needing more help. So there's a lot of support out there. If you're a senior, there's also the Golden Circle. They have a senior systems navigator because seniors are usually forgotten in this whole myriad of things, and they'll help seniors walk through some of those issues that's systemic for seniors at that time. Men's mental health is quite, for some reason, it seems to be stigmatized and stuff. It's harder, it seems to be, for men to reach out. It's not something that men don't talk about their feelings. It's a societal problem where people feel like men don't have feelings. So we need to really highlight that. And the more we talk about mental health, the better. If I share with my friend, say, if I'm having a mental health struggle, or if I'm having a really bad day, not just the talking helps, but the ability to connect with that person. And if they're struggling, they will probably reach out and feel more comfortable to talk to you when something is going wrong. That being said, don't ever be scared to reach out if you're struggling with your mental health. There's always somebody there to listen. There's always somebody that will care that you're struggling. And we just want to make sure everybody's okay, because mental health is health. It's not just physical health. It's a wound that people don't see. So talking about it is important, because people don't know what's going on if you're hurting on the inside. It's just like autoimmune disease. If you're struggling with that, a lot of people don't see it, but it's there and it's real. So just putting the emphasis on being able to talk and being able to reach out if you need to, and don't be scared to share your struggles, because you might end up saving somebody else a lot of pain.